Hello and welcome. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We have a conversation today with René Algesheimer. René's exhibition we just started, and we'd like to ask him a few questions and explain his background in photography and some of his images that we'll be looking at. We're actually standing in front of a huge image of his. How big? This is about 2.5 meters wide, right?
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
so it's a gigantically, it's also a gigantically beautiful image. René, thank you for making it all the way from Switzerland to Bad Homburg. Um, I understand you're a scientist, you're an artist, you're a philosopher. How did that bring you to photography, or how did you get into photography?
So thanks, David. Thanks a lot for having me, and really such a pleasure to be here in this beautiful city of Bad Homburg, and in this beautiful gallery as well. And from the very first beginning, I felt that your kindness and your calmness, your inner peace is reflected in these rooms, and so that's what my photography is all about. So I think that I'm just a human being who tries to express things in my own life, and I'm very curious, and so that's probably one of the origins that brought me into science. And I'm a university professor and doing research on sustainability and human values and social networks. And photography is another way to express myself. And I've started early on as a child and to express the things that I have inside, all the questions, the emotions. And my medium in the early childhood was the word and poems. And a little later on, I started with music. And so I studied music at the university. And then a little later on, it was the visual photography. So all these tools are just different tools to express what I have inside. And just the medium has changed a little bit over the years. And so today, I'm happy to welcome you to Voice of My Eyes, the smallness of big landscapes, my exhibition in the Taunus Photo Gallery.
Thank you very much. And we'll get to the voice of your eyes a little later in our discussion because René has published this most wonderful book, a collection of the greatest living landscape photographers around the world. We'll get to that in a few minutes. So yes, for those who don't recognize, this is the picture you actually you sent me. And I understand in your photography, you have this thing about the relationship of the micro to the macro, or the other way around, and perhaps you can explain that in a little bit more detail.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I was born into a family that stuck together, and so we were a big family, and we had a lot of fruit trees. And so, from early childhood on, I was kind of working with my family members, and I really enjoyed that being a part of something bigger and a part kind of contributing to something bigger to my family. And so the individual in the group has always been kind of a very important part of my life. And a little bit later on in science, I discovered that as my core topic. So I was very interested in the psychology of sociology. So how individuals behave in the group and how the group, the structure of the group superimposes something on the individual, how individuals behave in a conform way or how they try to escape and show reactance. And so that the micro and the macro has always been a guideline for my research and for my life.
Hmm.
And I'm interested how the structure, so how society, how the groups, how the families, they form our individual well-being, our behaviors, and how what's our role when we behave? How can we change the system?
And so I see also the relationship between the micro and the macro in some of your images. So this is the image that we're standing in front of. I see there's um, relationships between um, the the triangles that we see here. You see everything made up of simple shapes, lines, circles, squares, triangles,
Sure.
and you see that in very small, and then you see that put together in a large landscape image.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a large landscape image that you see over here. Is 9 images that are stitched together and made in the empty quarter and close to the border of Abu Dhabi. And but if you look into the details, you probably can discover lots of individual images that would work quite well, completely isolated from the context. And so when I start looking at a scenery like that, I ask myself, what is it that speaks to me? What is the essence really of the landscape?
Mm-hmm.
And being a mathematician, I try to really reduce the big landscapes into the unique parts. And for me, very often the unique parts are geometric elements like lines, triangles, diagonals, shapes, structure, texture. And so while I was looking here at the big landscape, I always try also to zoom in and finding these pure geometric shapes, which is probably following something like geometric expressionism
Mm-hmm.
and or abstraction. And so I tried to, in this exhibition, to create diptychs, triptychs of images working together
Mm-hmm.
who show the vista, the big landscape, but who juxtapose it with a
With the
small
detail,
detail.
yeah, yeah, yes, and that comes across so well, particularly in this image called Gold, where the eye is immediately drawn to the camels you see here in the sand dunes, and then further over on the right, you see this dead tree in the middle of the sand, and I guess there's a triangle here. There's the camels, the tree, and you, the photographer, and then you see these triangles here. Tell us about this image because it looks like almost like a painting, like it's been colored, um, and it's been just a second. I will. You start talking.
Okay, I'll start talking. Yeah, it is absolutely true. And what you see here in the image actually is a triangle that I had in mind. You see in the upper right corner, you see the dead tree, and in the upper left corner, you see the living camels. And for me, being the viewer of the scenery, I was asking myself a question. So the death, the living element, and we can make decisions every day, and we can choose between a life or the death. We can choose between a life that is a little bit more captivating, alive, and so this is an invitation for the viewer to make decisions. And if you kind of look at the dunes and the shape of the dunes, they almost look like waves, the waves of life. And for me, gold, the title means that we always have the capability to make a decision and to make a decision for life. And so that embedded in the context of the harsh environment of the dunes and the desert makes that image a very important image for me.
And just I understand. And just before anyone thinks that all your images are just sand dunes in the empty quarter, there's a lot of sand, but it's not all the empty quarter. So this is to me an amazing reduction. If you look closely at the image here in the gallery, you will obviously see that it's a sand dune, but it's made up of the simplest shapes you can imagine. Um, Tell us about this, or where is it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is Death Valley. And so I've juxtaposed this image with the gold image we've seen before and under the dead tree, because this image is made in Death Valley. And what you can see in the image is an image that looks at the micro element, at the smallest geometric elements, as I said before, the triangles, the shapes, the transitions, the gradation of the tonal values. And what I wanted to express is that even in a very dead environment that looks almost like death, there's a lot of things going. There's a lot of living elements. And just if you're invited, just if you push yourself to look into it, that
Uh-huh.
is the idea.
Yeah, no, I understand. Thank you. And now it looks like we're in China, right?
Yes, we are. The Yellow Mountains.
The Yellow Mountains west of Shanghai. This is such an amazingly charming, captivating image, not just because the rays that you see through the fog, but when you come and look at the image closely on the wall here, you will see that in the center, in the lower bit of the center, and on the left here, there are these very light bits which are capturing the sunlight very directly. So, yes, tell us about this.
So this picture is a part of a project that is called Transitions. And I've discovered that transitions, they start in a start state and they end in an end state. And we are something in between. And once we recognize transitions, we observe them by others, what is happening around us. But we realize that we are also part of the transition itself. And so transitions is probably the only thing that can be for sure, that things are always ongoing. And in a country that is very much influenced at the moment by a transitional process. And I was captivated by a thunderstorm that was a 3 day snowstorm in the Yellow Mountains, and everything was covered with snow. It was incredible, dark skies, clouds. Then on the fourth day, it was almost like the sky, the clouds, they were just cracking and the light was falling in, the rays were coming over the landscape. And it looks like in the central lower part of the image, it looks almost like that there's a figure standing on the rock, something like a Maria, for example. And so for me, it was like the ultimate call from the universe. And it was the light that unfolds and over the landscapes. And that was a really captivating moment. And one of the top 5 moments with the light I've ever experienced in my life.
It's interesting you mention that because I always like to remind people that the word photography comes from Greek and it means drawing with light.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And here we have two images, Breaking the Habit and Used Landscapes. And Breaking the Habit is another one of these huge prints, about the size of the one behind us. And Breaking the Habit, I guess, because if you look closely, you'll see between one, two, three, four, between the fourth and the fifth tree from the left, a tiny little tree in the background, and then you see a couple of branches across which are. This is breaking the habit, is it?
Absolutely. So, to me, being a scientist, I feel very often that our society lives by normalizing people. So, our society has the intent to cut off people who are too edgy, too nerdy, and to normalize people, to make them almost look like equal.
Conform, yeah.
Conform, yeah, exactly. Thanks. And so I think that the people who really have the power to change the world are these edgy, nerdy people who have a character. And so for me, this is an invitation to breaking the habit sometimes. And I find there are actually two branches that fall over from the trees, and this small little kind of tree that I purposely put a little bit more on the left side, not in the center of the image, to show that sometimes if we have the courage to look across the edges, to talk to people who are nerdy, different, difficult, then we may find something, some beauty in it. And actually, I juxtaposed the breaking the habit with an image from another series that I call the used landscapes. Used landscapes is a study of wood, actually woodland that is in humanscapes, is used as balcony wood, for example, or wood in houses, in old houses. And I show in a series of images how nature returns through the ages, and moss and plants are created on the wood. And so it looks like almost that nature is calling them back to nature. And so I've used that image with that almost looking like a face and a smile, looking at breaking the habit, looking at our society and thinking about what are you doing with our world? And
some people who've stood in front of this see half a lion's face here.
Exactly.
You know, an eye, a nose, and hair coming down side. That's amazing. And this is another image from another series, Echoes of Two Realms. Tell us about this. There's a lot of green here, and I guess we're looking through branches at water with reflections of trees on the other side.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But it's more than just the reflections of the trees on the other side.
Okay.
It's actually the core idea of that project. Um, whenever I read news, I ask myself, what is the reality? What is the pure information? What is my perception of the reality? What is the manipulated reality? And I believe it is very difficult in these days with AI and with created and manipulated information to find out what is the real truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this project, I'm playing a little bit with the illusion. So what is really reality? What is the illusion? What is our perception of that?
Ah, okay.
And it is a part of a bigger project that I called intervention. And so I, as a photographer, I interfere in many of these images by doing things. And so in this image, it is not myself, the photographer, who's interfering, but there are a few people on the water in a kayak who cross kind of the river and they leave kind of patterns in the river. And that is a kind of an intervention. And although we see beautiful image, there's something happening. It is humans who leave patterns in the
Oh,
nature,
they're the lines in the water.
and therefore the lines in
Yeah.
the water, the
Okay.
white lines and the black lines.
Yeah,
Exactly.
understand. And then what I would also like to mention is this amazing book here. Yes, the book's more important than my face. So this is a 520-page book that René published a couple of years ago, I think, something like
Yeah,
that.
2 years ago.
And it's called The Voice of the Eyes: Creative Minds in Landscape Photography, and it is the most amazingly brilliant collection of the best landscape photographers in the world today. And what René has done, he's interviewed them, and he's also provided quite a lot of their images. Fantastic. How did you start doing this? And by the way, the book is here and available in the gallery.
So 2 years ago or 3 years ago, when I started the project, actually I had two motivations for the book. The first was that COVID was just emerging, and all these professional photographers, they lost a lot of their income stream because they needed to cancel their workshops. And I myself was thinking, how can I support these photographers? Second question was that through social media, landscape photography has become kind of very repetitive. And I asked myself the question, where is the creativity in landscape photography? And so my thought was to invite 30 of the most well-known, the best landscape photographers in the world and
Mhm.
interview them. Ask
Okay.
them about what is your voice through your eyes in your images. And so I created a lot of interviews. There are more than 120 of their images also in the book, and a super high quality paper printed in Italy. And yeah, so if you now look into the book, there are photographers like Rafael Rojas, like Mark Adamos, Santa Batoja, Valda Bailey, Rachel Talibard, who had an exhibition here at Taunus Foto Galerie a few months before, and Paul Kenny, but many, many others. And so I'm super
It's a
happy with the
fantastic
outcome
book.
of the book.
And actually, the book is responsible for me getting in touch with you because I was so
Yeah,
impressed by the book that
thank
I
you.
thought I had to get in touch. And thank you so much. And the what we will we're almost at the end of our conversation. Just wanted to encourage people, please come to the gallery, see the exhibition, have a look at the book. It's available here in the gallery until the 2nd of November, when this exhibition will close. The next exhibition will be by Christel Schneider, called Symphony of Trees and Water, and that'll start on the 8th of November. So thank you so much, René. Is there something that you still want to add? Have we covered the basic issues?
Yeah, absolutely. There are always more things to say, I think. But if you're interested in hearing these stories, then pass by. I'm happy to share all these stories with you. And I think every image, as Minor White said, is a self-portrait. And so all these images, they are telling part of my life. And I would like to inspire you all to follow your own path. And if your path kind of moves closely to Bad Homburg, then please participate and join us in the gallery and in the vernissage.
Thank you for your interesting information. Thank you all for tuning in and hope to see you soon here in the gallery. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks. Good.